Alright, it's time to put this thermostatic control into our dehydrator. The dehydrator runs too hot for standard PLA, caused it to bulge where it was overlapped on the roll, caused it to get hung up in the hot end a little bit. So I'm going to show you, this is just the most basic dehydrator money will buy. You take the 4 screws on the bottom off that are around the outside edge. Then you're going to take apart take off the 2 screws right here, unscrew them. And that just allows you access to these 2 screws that are down here. Loosen them up, pull them off. Now, from there, take your light out that's here, and it's attached here. I cut this really down in here because we're not gonna mess with this connector. It's gonna stay. So I used my snips, my little blue snips, and I just reached down there. I even cut a little bit more off right there. So that's gonna stay like that. Alright, so here's our thermostatic controller. It's 110, so it'll power on the same voltage that that the machine runs on. What we're going to do is we're going to take each one of these leads. I have to figure out which one the positive one is. If you look at it, generally the one without the lines on the wire is going to be your power. I'm sure I remember that correctly, and that's exactly right. So the one without the lines, the nicks in it, that's going to be your common. Your power is going to be your smooth one. So we're going to take our smooth one, we're going to cut this connector off right here, and we're going to put a couple wires. Now you can do this with 1 wire from the power and jumper it, but here's your connections. You're going to need your 110 voltage, and you're going to need a common. So your smooth one will be your 110 voltage, but you're also going to need 110 voltage over here. If you want, you can jumper it, but trying to put wire into these little tiny connectors, 2 of them, can be a pain in the butt. So I'm just going to run 2 from the smooth one, and I'm going to run 1 from this common right here. Alright, so the wiring on the controller, it needs 110 here, and it needs 110 on S1. Then it needs a common right there where it says ground, common ground. So you want a common, and then your S2 will be your switch leg. So the way we're going to achieve this is basically we're going to get 3 wires. We're going to cut this right here. This is the smooth jacketed one. This is our 110. We're going to cut this. We're going to put 1 connector on the wire going to the heater and motor, and we're going to run that to S2. Then we're going to connect to the 110. We're going to run that to VCC, which is your voltage, 110 voltage, and then we're going to run the second one to S1. So 2 wires off this, 1 to VCC, 1 to S1. Then over here, your wire with the lines in on the outside of the jacket, that's your common. We need to go ahead and I'm just going to disconnect it right here like I do all of them. I'm going to run another wire. That is going to be your common ground. So I'm going to go dig up some wire. We got a whole bunch of units out back. I'm probably going to just strip some wire off them, and give me a few minutes. I'll be back with some connectors and wire. Okay, so I pull up some wire. Looks like it's both 18 gauge. So you're looking at 7 amps here at 110. I would say 18 is more than good enough. So if you do have a lower gauge wire, you want to use the control voltage for the VCC connection and ground. Probably doesn't pull, I mean, less than an amp, I'm sure. So you don't need much anything for that. Alright, so from here, what I did is I cut this out, and also there's some retainers right here on the side that weren't going to work because this is rounded. I thought about making a little plate inside fusion, but I was like, you know, why spend the time on that really? So what we're going to do, we're going to drop these right in here. And pop this in place. So you see, no, that was kind of retarded. I don't think you can say that on a YouTube video. Alright, so make sure you put it in right side up. Because of the way those wires stick out, it's a little bit tougher to get in there. So there, we're in there right there like that. And here we are coming out the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat up my hot glue gun. And I'm just going to put some hot glue on the inside once I get this centered. And oh, I see, it's more rounded at the bottom than it is at the top. Not a big deal. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop this back into place right here after I hot glue it. We're going to figure out the wire routing, and then we're going to go ahead and make our connections, and pretty much that's going to be it. It's a real simple project. Okay, so we got the hot glue gun up to temperature. It's just sitting in here pretty good. Alright. It's ugly, should be effective. Put a bunch on there. Alright, very simply, just going to let that dry for a few seconds here. See if we can get it back in here without knocking her loose. Alright. And the screwdriver's on the floor. Just tighten these down real quick. Plan's kind of made up as we go along here, folks. So you can still see the colors. So they're going to be plenty long enough to go wherever I wanted to go. So the one slight question we had is, where do we bring the sensor through? So here's the sensor. It's going to have to come up. So here's the plate. Now we know that the filament's going to want to sit right about here. So this was the problem. Inside this hole right here was getting really hot and transferring, and the filament actually got very hot because of this. Now probably my mistake, maybe raise it up a little bit, might have made somewhat of a difference, but I don't think that much. So what we're going to do, it looks like we can just come up through anywhere. So just going to check these screws. So you do see that the screw distance are not the same. So these are further apart, so that's going to be what goes right there. So this has to be in this position right here. So knowing that, I'll go ahead and poke a hole right here. And man, too bad I didn't have that hot glue gun still hot. We could just melt right through it. So I don't think this is going to crack. We'll go ahead and just pop this through. Yeah, that's not going to work. Let me go get a drill. We'll drill a hole big enough for the sensor to come through, close to the edge. So I got me a little drill bit right here. Got me a little toy drill. This is somebody gave me these. I keep them in the shop. The good drills are out in the trucks. Alright, so we're looking I'm going to go ahead and just drill us a hole right here about where we had it. Sounds my knee make on low speed. A little better. Okay, so there's our hole. You can use wire nuts, not recommended. If you use wire nuts, you need to be meticulous. You need to really make sure everything bit down, everything is bound in together. That is on there nice. I'm going to go ahead and put me a little piece of electrical tape on here. So maybe if it starts coming apart, at least the wire nut doesn't fall off the end and short anything. Although here we're all plastic. I ain't got much to worry about here. So there's our one connection. She's pretty. We'll tuck her down here. Alright. Now, this is our power coming back. So this is going to be our blue one. And same deal with this. We're going to just go ahead this is almost an understuff, but it's okay. Alright, that's pretty good. Looks like you got little holders here to make sure your wires, I believe that's what those are for, to hold the wire right there. So that's nice. Over here we might just put us a little spot of hot glue here to hold everybody. You know what? It doesn't even make any sense. Like I said, there's not a lot of thought put into this before making the video. Just kind of make it up as you go along. Just go ahead and bring all these wires out right there. I'm very cool with that. And that'll get them to where we need them to be. I'll go ahead and tighten all this stuff down. There's our two wires out of here. Kind of weird that they got knockouts on this and right there, but it's not knocked out. So this has been re-engineered. Or maybe they use this with a different control mechanism in the front, maybe with a timer, a thermostat, I don't know. Let's go ahead and do the same thing here. Beauty. Get everybody tucked down in pretty good. Oh, this is what this was for. So that's what these other two are for. This should hold it right there if you look right here. See how we got our wires sitting in these little grooves to hold everybody. And the same deal here. We got a wire right there. And I just realized that, yeah, so what's going to happen is that you're not going to be able to overlap because that top plate is going to probably come down and sandwich this. So our original plan wasn't going to work with the wires on the other side. We'll just do the other one. So here we go. Same deal. Now we have a common right here that we need to connect still. Go ahead and pop this off. We'll go ahead and strip these. Generous because we're using a wire nut. And then same deal here. And then here is our wire from the other side coming around. And cut it right here. Beauty. pretty. Fortunately, I'm going to have to go get one more wire nut and put it on there. From there, it looks like we just go ahead and put this thing back together. It does look like my wires are awful close to that element, which I'm not really liking that so much. I think that'll be good right there. So we might put some hot glue on some of these wires to make sure everybody stays put. Oh, no, I think it's okay. Alright, wire nut, put it back together. Stand by. This you don't have to take apart. I took these screws apart. I wasn't sure how this thing came apart. So basically I had a lot of filament sitting around all summer in the shop. I do have it climate controlled, but it falls behind. It's just a little mini split. Tried to print with some filament that I had laying around, some gold, and definitely was not behaving. So it dawned on me that it was full of humidity and that I needed to do something, and then I was sure I threw this thing away. And then I was like, well, let me check one more spot, and there it was. So I put the filament in there and I dried it, left it in there for like 6 hours one weekend. Came out, put it in the machine. The machine kept clogging. I was like, what the hell? And took the whole hot end apart, wasted my time. Come to find out, it's little bulges from getting the filament too hot made it so it wouldn't go down the throat anymore. Tighten a little knot and then keep it up underneath there like that. So I just have it like that, and you see where the probe is hiding. So I believe that could work. I'll go ahead and put the rest of the bad boys on here. Dirt. And bang. This is the W3230 micro computer temperature controller. You can find the manual online. Alright, so straightforward here. We're going to hold our setting button down. It's going to take you into your menu. That's going to be factory set for cooling. You want to change that to heating. So once you have that on H, you're going to change, this is how many degrees Celsius it's going to go down before the unit comes on. We're going to set that to, go ahead and set that to about, we don't want just super short cycle that'll wear out the relay. Go ahead and set that to 2 degrees Celsius. And let's see, the maximum temperature we're going to ever want for drying, we're going to take a look at this here real quick. I got lost here. So it looks like the maximum temperature we're going to want is going to be, oops, it's going to be 70 degrees Celsius. Let's go ahead and just type that in. So now we'll never be able to get higher than 70 degrees Celsius. So that'll be a nice little limit there. The minimum temperature doesn't matter. All these other things didn't apply. You can look up the manual if you want to check them out. So now what we want to do is, we got PLA in here. We're going to go ahead and press the set button, and we're going to take it up to the 50 degrees Celsius that's recommended for drying PLA. Now remember, the location of your sensor is going to have a lot to do a lot to do with how hot your PLA actually gets. So keep that in mind. So we're going to go ahead and put this on here. And we're going to let her heat up. And when that thing gets to 50, it should cycle off. And then when it goes down to 48, it should cycle back on. Of course, you can play with that offset if you find 2 degrees Celsius drop is short cycling too much. You can change that. Also, you can see how much your actual probe temperature drops. And if your probe temperature isn't dropping fast, then you can go ahead and pick that up and cut down the cycle rate even more. We'll see how much, how long it takes for that thing to drop once it gets to 50. So I just tried to run this other filament in my 5 again, and I'm not sure what's going on. We got some kind of issue. It does feel, when I rub my hand down it, it feels terrible. I'm sure that's what's going on here. Go ahead and get this mouse on. See, I push it through my hand. Something's not right. I hate when you take something apart. Alright, let's see what happens here. See, I don't get that. There you go. So it's a 2 degree high swing, 2 degree low swing. So apparently we should have set this for 48. Now the fan's not blowing right now, but it's still doing its magic. So pretty straightforward. You see it's going to hold the temperature pretty good. So whatever you set that P1 number to, that's how many degrees you're going to want to set this below what you want. So if you set that to 3 and you want 50, you're going to type 47 in here. And you see, this is actually going to work very, very well. And you have a lot of the ability to adjust however you want. We'll go ahead and take the cap off to get it to speed up a little bit faster here. I guess at 50 it's going to come back on. So there you go. Right at 50 it's right back on. So there you go, folks. If you can come up with one of these, flea market, whatever. People buy these, use them one time, never use them again. They're everywhere. The controller, I'm sure I didn't pay more than a few dollars for that thing. So, alright. It's a pretty simple project, and it's something that is going to come in. It's going to be a lot of use to a lot of people. Alright, everybody, good luck.